Welcome to Drams and Dragons, the podcast about fantasy and whiskey. This week, we're once again boarding the bone ship and taken to the seas of the 100 Isles. I'm Gus Berger, and with me is my first mate, Dustin Van Horn. How's that?
It was good.
Oh,
Very good.
cool.
Yeah.
All
I'll
right.
be your deck keeper any day, shipwifes.
Yeah, arr.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Love it. Yeah. Oh, and I gotta say before we start, I read it this time, but I still couldn't get the pirate talk of the audiobook out of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very piratey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, it's written in. I mean, it's not just like a vibe. It's like it's literally written into the dialogue, the accents, and everything. It's great.
It's good stuff.
So yeah, we're talking about the Bone Ships Book 2, which is called, or the Tide Child Trilogy Book 2 by R.J. Barker. The book is called Call of the Bone Ships. The first one was just the Bone Ships. This is Call of the Bone Ships. So we're going to get into that in a minute. And first, the Dram, Dustin.
Yeah, let's have a dram. Now, I don't have anything exciting. I'm on my rotation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm following the can't buy anymore until I finish my current stock rotation. So.
Yeah. I am taking the Steam game collection approach to whiskey.
Yeah.
Which is like you buy a bunch of bottles and then you just sit on the shelf for a while. But now I'm trying this one. No, I'm gonna install it and load it up and maybe play one of these games.
Gonna actually play it. Yep.
This week, I'm going to be doing the notes for a pretty cool whiskey. And actually, before I get into talking about the whiskey, I just want to really quick talk about something we actually we neglected to chat about like a month ago.
Oh.
In the whiskey world, back when it happened. What happened was the United States of America decided that they were going to establish an American single malt standard. You can't call it Scotch, that's from Scotland, but American single malt. So it's like Scotch, but American. And this is new, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, guys, I did a quick Google, and if you go to americansinglemaltwhiskey.org, got more info on it with a bunch of very happy looking people.
Yep.
And there were rulings by councils, and sounds very official, and it's very exciting.
The requirements are it's got to be made from 100% malted barley, distilled entirely at one distillery, mashed, distilled, and matured in the United States, matured in oak casks of a capacity not exceeding 700 liters, distilled to no more than 160 proof or 80% alcohol by volume, and bottled at 80 proof or more, so more than 40% alcohol. Those are the requirements. So I just wanted to bring this sort of to the attention of our listeners if they weren't already aware.
Yeah.
Now, I bring all that up because I'm going to try one.
I was about to say, yeah, I know where this is going.
Yeah. You know where this is going because I'm going to have one, and I'm going to have a very well regarded one.
And to tack on too, so I'm looking over the founding members list, and like basically all these distilleries got together and decided to make this happen. But a lot of the founding members are in the Pacific Northwest. So if you're up there, you are within driving distance of at least 3 of the founding members that I see here.
Absolutely.
Copperworks Distilling, Westland Distillery, and Westward down in Portland.
It's there's a pretty cool,
wow.
There's always been in the Pacific Northwest, there's always been this like microbrew thing, and there've been a lot of it's been a sort of hot spot in the US for winemaking and growing grapes and growing hops and all this. It's also a big wheat growing area, big grain growing area. And a number of years ago, they made it much easier for micro distilleries to start up.
Cool.
And since then, there have been all these micro distilleries up here in the Pacific Northwest. Some of them have even made good whiskey or, good booze. And the one that's probably at the top of the pile of all the local distilleries up here is Westland. I hadn't had them until recently.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get one because I wanted to support a local business, a local booze business. I also learned not that long ago, but a little bit ago, I learned that they were doing something really cool. They were using Washington peat.
Yeah, this is so cool.
This is so cool. Washington peat. So basically, there are a variety of booze makers around the country who make peated whiskey and make essentially a peated single malt American single malt that's smoked. They get their malted barley or the peat itself, depending on how they're doing it. They get it from Scotland or Ireland. Pretty much everybody does in the U.S. And for a while, Westland did that. And then a couple of years ago, they made this big decision that they were going to source as much as possible from Washington. So this whiskey that I am going to do a tasting of, I've already tried it a couple of times, actually, since I bought it. It's really good. This is their Solum, and this is the second edition of Solum.
Okay.
Yeah, it is made with Washington barley, with Washington peat. The peat was, and as I understand it, taken from a peat bog down near Shelton, Washington, sort of in southwestern Washington. Basically, it is not actually like legal to take peat from Washington bogs. There are a lot of bogs in Washington. It's very difficult to legally do it, but they managed to. There's somebody who has a private, a bunch of land. They own a peat bog, and they got somehow the permission to do this. Everything is either federally owned land or it's protected, environmentally protected. Peat bogs are often found in wetlands. Wetlands are protected. It's very hard.
A lot of indigenous land too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's very hard to get, privately held land that doesn't fall under the various protections. So it's very hard to get, but they did. They managed to. And as I understand it, they've harvested it relatively sustainably. I know that bogs grow very slowly, and so some people might be, but they haven't drained the bog, for example. They haven't done the sort of more damaging practices, and they've taken only what they need. It doesn't take very much to make whiskey. So I'm excited to share this with everybody. I think it's really cool. It's really different kind of thing from the sort of normal Scottish, Irish, sort of peated whiskeys that are out there. It's very unique, and it's got some really cool notes. So without further ado, I'm gonna get into it.
Right, man. I'm excited to hear about it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. When you messaged me about it, oh man. And for those of you who don't know, I'm moving closer to Gus over the summer, and I got even more excited as if I didn't have enough reasons to be pumped to go back.
Yeah, and there will be some of this bottle by the time you get here, man. I am not like a super heavy drinker. I don't go through these bottles super fast. I know I have this big selection and I have all these whiskeys, and somebody man, he's got a real alcohol problem.
Yeah.
It takes me forever to get through these bottles.
Yeah, it's the Steam list,
Yeah, exactly.
You play all the games. You just
you just have them. You play 2 hours of the game, and then you forget about it and move on to something else. So that's what happens with these bottles. They're just sitting on my shelf, and I know they go bad eventually. So they do eventually get drunk, but it takes a long time.
Yeah. Oh, Gus is making.
Oh man! So I'm getting
happy noises here.
There's so there's a few different things going on in this whiskey that I detect right off the bat. The first is a sweet, buttery caramel. The second is apple. So you get those ethyl acetate kind of smells, like that appley. That comes from the fermentation,
okay.
The yeast fermentation before it gets distilled. And then you got this light peat smoke that it almost doesn't register as peat smoke because it's so different from the Scottish peats that we're all used to. Mm-hmm. It almost registers as sort of floral and herbal. And so you got this fruitiness, this sweetness, and then this kind of herbal thing going on, this herbally smoke, almost like somebody's smudging with forest herbs in the other room.
Ooh, this will appeal to all the smudgers out there. Very, very Pacific Northwest.
And it's really earthy. When I really get my nose in there, I get it smells like the other things, like the sweet and the fruity, but then there's this element of I'm like, in the somewhere in the forests of the Pacific Northwest,
Mm-hmm.
In that sort of damp, earthy, loamy kind of, mossy vibe that like, and it's actually funny that when I bought this, the same day that I got this and tried it, we were out like hiking like right before that. And it was like wet and cold. And like, it was like, it just matched that vibe exactly.
Wow.
You talk about terroir, right? In booze or whatever. And it's just, it's amazing how much that local peat changes the whole complexion of the whiskey.
Yeah, and it's cool hearing that because that's the whole shtick of the Scottish peated whiskeys is that they capture the character. And I haven't been yet, but I've talked to a couple people who've done the tours and stuff, and they say, "Yeah, man, when I drink it, it takes me back." And that is so cool. Like I can smell that, remembering what it's like to hike there, and that's so cool that you can get that from a dram like that.
And it's such a good dram. I just took a sip, and you get some of that sweet caramel, and you also get this like this campfire in the damp rainforest kind of vibe.
Whoa!
It's almost like a campfire with s'mores, but like in the fall. Not like on a beach, not in the summer. Like it's like drizzly, and you're like, yeah, it's like a drizzly campfire s'more.
Dude, that's Pacific Northwest too.
The smell that it gets in the Pacific Northwest when it's been raining for a long time and everything has that smell. It's like that smell. It's not like the freshly rained, like, rain for the first time in 6 months smell. No, it's like it's been raining for 6 months straight smell. But in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, it takes me back. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I really get some herbs here. There's a eucalyptus or cypress or it's juniper or something, some kind of like in that vein. It adds a whole new element. I've never had that in whiskey before. And it goes with everything else. It just blends together. It's beautifully rounded. This is a round whiskey.
Cool.
That earthiness just pops in a really interesting, unique, and delicious way. It doesn't like overpower the kind of normal whiskey like flavors. It's also a really nice oily whiskey. This comes in at 50%. It's got a nice color. It's no color added, not chill filtered, all that stuff. It's got a really nice color to it.
Where do you think they get that color from them? Is that just the wood?
Yeah. I know they use some bourbon. They use some, I think I was reading about this. I believe they used a mix bourbon and new oak. So I believe that's what it was.
Cool.
The finish I want to talk about is really yummy. It's got it's kind of like a jasmine and green tea and tobacco.
Okay.
Ooh. Jasmine, green tea, tobacco finish.
Ooh. I know how much we're liking tobacco lately.
Yeah, it's really nice. A lot of the time you get like chocolate and tobacco or like other, this one is like and there's an edge to it that's like where you get that smoke on the back, and it's almost like charred. Like you can taste that slight charring almost. Very nice finish. Long. There's nothing unpleasant about the finish in terms of like, oh, it's too hot. Oh, it's heartburn. Oh, it's it's fairly smooth for 50%. It's not the smoothest whiskey I've had, but it's not bad. It's really tasty. There's so much going on here. There's so much going on. There's so much to like. I can't find anything negative to say about it at all. It's fantastic.
Cool. Taste of the Northwest.
Yep.
It's like licking the state of Washington. Just
it's Washington. It's like Washington everything. It's like Washington, except for the oak, maybe. It's Washington barley. It's Washington peat. It's distilled here. Some of their expressions that they've started making do use Washington oak, not just the Gary oak, but they'll use like they have a red wine cask and a beer cask and stuff that use local, local producers, the casks from local producers of those other things, right? And which is amazing. I mean, I wish more places would do things like that and really get into their local, like sort of what's available locally. It can be great. This is fantastic. And the thing about it that is that it's also unique. And it's uniquely Washington because of that peat. You're not going to find anything else that's quite like this.
Man, and that's something I really like to see because there's a lot of local distilleries, and there's some good stuff out there. But there's a reason why the big names keep selling. It's because they have a great product and the way they do it. So it's nice to see a local distillery making some stuff that's like truly unique.
Yeah,
from the area. It's like this. That's the spirit of Scotch. That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
pretty exciting.
Now, then there's the question of would I recommend this? Yes and no. Let me explain why no. Because I would recommend this to many people, maybe not everybody. It's kind of expensive. Bottle was $150. Yes, I would recommend it if you're willing to spend that much. I know a lot of people aren't. Is it $150 good? For me, it is. And here's why. I'm sort of, I think we talked about this a couple of episodes ago where we were talking about like what makes a whiskey sort of worthwhile if it's more expensive, and the two things that I would say are it's got to be really good. It's and it is. I think it's really good. B, and this is maybe just as important, is it's got to be unique. It's got to have something about it that's like interesting or unique that stands out from the crowd. Does this have that? 100%. Not only is it, it's not just a marketing gimmick that it's made with Washington peat. You can taste it. It is different. It is genuinely different, and it's really good. So, do I recommend it? Yeah. But I just be forewarned. It's $150 plus tax, right? And not everybody wants to spend that. You are not going to find another bottle like this. You might not even be able to find this bottle outside Washington right now. And I'll tell you why. They only made 5,000 bottles of the first edition.
Oh, cool.
They only made like 5,500 of the second edition, which is this one. You might not be able to even find this at all. And if you can, it might be marked way the heck up. I got it for MSRP plus Washington tax. Washington tax is stupid. But the point is, you might not even be able to find it. It's a very unique whiskey. It's a very special whiskey. It's very tasty. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. It's special.
Yeah. And I'd say if you're the type of consumer that goes for like, the rarity and the novelty is something I think it's underrated. People like novelty. It reminds me a lot of, I have a bottle I'm hanging on to that I got from Stranahan's in Colorado. And they have a couple that they sell nationally, a couple kind of like kind of American, they used to call it like an American whiskey. They might have a single malt these days, but the snowflake version of that, they only sell a couple thousand every year. I love stuff like that where you can get something that like literally no one else, like the richest people in the world, the people that have all the means might not be able to get that just because they can't find it or they can't get it, or that really appeals to me. I like drinking it and going ha ha ha.
Yeah. I mean, just think about like people, like 5,000 bottles of a release is nothing.
Yeah.
Like this genuinely, it's such a small, like, and the reason Crystal and I bought this, and actually it's funny, Crystal was the one who was actually like, we should get it, is because it's so hard to find. Like I hadn't seen it anywhere, and then I was up at High Spirits in Paulsbo.
Yeah.
And they had everything because they got the hookup directly from Westland. We went up there, they had it, and I was like, we were just there to browse. We weren't even there to buy it. We were like, whoa, they have this thing that we'd heard about, and it was almost like, oh, well, we kind of have to buy it now, right? Like they've actually got the thing that's so rare.
Yeah, man.
And man, it's worth it. It's worth every penny to me. This is fantastic.
Cool, man. That's rad. I'm glad you found that, and I'm excited to taste that eventually.
Mm-hmm.
What time to be alive?
I will save a dram for you.
Thank you,
man. All right.
Oh man, that's
That's
exciting.
that's all I got to
Yeah,
say on that. Man, I just
cool.
that finish is great.
Mm.
Like I like the nose. I like the nose is great. Palate is good, and that finish is just it wraps it all up in
Right
a nice
on,
little
man.
bow.
Yeah, and if that's a quality coming out of that, then yeah, for listeners, if you check out what's that website again? Yeah, it's AmericanSingleMaltWhiskey.org.
Mm-hmm.
You can
And
find
you know,
there's stuff
yeah,
everywhere in the. I was looking through here. Pretty much every state has someone who's contributing to this. There's one up in Boston that I got my eye on that I
yeah,
might go check out. But yeah, it's a
mm-hmm.
good time to be a whiskey drinker. It's like some good stuff out there.
Yeah, there really is. And it's funny. I talk about the being like the Steam game collector kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
I've got the red wine cask bottle on the shelf unopened. So
Ooh,
I
all
might have
right.
to give that a try. I have not tried it. I really want to try it. So all right. Well, I'm good. What are you having? I
Cool.
know you I know you.
Oh, it's funny. So I just keep them around my desk now. I don't drink them unless we're doing a podcast, but it kind of looks like
Mhm.
I'm just hoarding my bottles here. So I just I got the Johnny Walker Blue Label tonight
Oh,
and
very
a
nice.
nice glass of ice water
Mhm.
along with it because that's the best way to have it.
All right. Well, you ready to move on?
Oh, yeah,
Chat
I'm
about our
ready to
book.
talk about some pirates and stuff and
Our.
some bird people and all that good
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's do it. And I definitely have some thoughts and feelings about it, which I'm excited to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I read this book, or I should say, when I read this series, um, I read it right around the time that the third book was releasing. So I actually read the first two right before the third one released.
Okay.
And of the three, this one was my favorite. This one was this is a Empire Strikes Back.
Cool.
This one I just fell in love with. Like the first one, I was like sucked in, couldn't put it down. And this one just brought it all to another level. So in the first book, we were sort of introduced to Lucky Mies and Joran and the Tide Child, which is the bone ship, and this whole vast world that's basically it's the 100 Isles. It's all these basically this whole fantasy world that's nothing but ocean and islands.
Mm-hmm.
And it's grimdark.
Well, that's probably a good segue for what I was going to say about it. So the book starts off. It does that thing where stuff has happened between the first and the second book that wasn't written about.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of fill in the blanks. And the long and short of it is there's this kind of neutral third party base that's been established. And there's some secret squirrel stuff happening where they're working against big forces and they have this it's kind of like a pirate town. Think of it like that.
Mm-hmm. Because
in
the first book they're not really pirates.
Nah.
Right? Like they're still working for the powers that be.
Yeah.
Right. In the first book, they're still working for those powers. They're not really, they haven't gone rogue yet.
Yeah. And there's a conspiracy they're part of.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, in this book, it seems like they've taken it farther and now they're like actively like not just part of a conspiracy, but they're part of a large group that's all on board with the same kind of mission.
But they really are pirates now.
Yeah.
Right. They're taking ships. They're acting outside. They're outlaws on a boat. That makes them pirates.
Yep. With all the good stuff. They're sneaky, they're brutal.
Yep.
All that good stuff. For good, by the way, they are definitely the good guys. Yeah. But that's kind of the first thing that's kind of pops out to me with this book. It's it is grimdark, but also it's a story about people who don't want to live in this shitty world anymore, where
Mm-hmm.
their babies get sacrificed to light ships, and where these bones are used to make the ships that war on each other and steal each other's kids to turn into ship lights, which I'm not really sure what's about, but it's pretty metal, man. But
Mm-hmm.
so it's a guy. Empire Strikes Back is a really good way to put it, because it's a yeah, rebels fighting against the Empire. Yeah,
And it even cuts forward the same way that Empire Strikes Back does, right? I
yeah,
mean, like
yeah.
it, like,
Oh,
and it,
it does with the
yeah,
base
and
and all
then
that. Mm-hmm.
immediately there's like enemies assaulting the base. Like it's very Empire Strikes Back, and
Mm-hmm.
it's structured very similarly to that. And it also expands the world and expands the world building and the universe that the first book established. The first, I get it, and it expands it in pretty much every way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it brings in more characters. It expands on the characters. It expands massively on the Gul'aim,
Mm-hmm.
which are
Yeah,
they're
right
the
off the
bird
bat.
people. Oh yeah, like right off
Yeah.
the bat, and then going forward, which I think the way the Gul'aim character kind of comes into his own in this book is really cool. He
Mm.
like in the first book, he's just kind of there, and he's kind of, I mean, he's more than there, but he's not. He's just kind of like, most of the time he's like huddled up in his room. You know, he's kind of
It is weird,
he's just sort of weird. Yeah, he's just sort of weird down in the
alien
under the
kind of.
decks. Yeah, alien. Yeah,
Yeah.
and in this book, he starts to like an active participant in events,
Yeah.
um, in a whole
And
nother
he's a cool
way.
one too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, he's a great but yeah, it's cool, like if you're looking for like over themes, like he's kind of how you're exploring stuff like oppression and internalized oppression
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, cuz so their entire race has been subjugated and they're maimed at birth.
Mm-hmm.
Um there's like an, a class of Ghislaine that are a little bit different. I'm not sure everything about them, but they kind of are the enforcers who
Yeah,
work to keep the other Ghislaine in line. So there's all that kind of internalized kind of
because some of
slavery
them,
and ugh.
yeah, because some of them are wizards essentially, or sea water and wind wizards. Right, they're
Yeah,
wizards of the ocean, or the waves, of the wind. But not all of them are,
yeah,
and they are the ones who are maimed are they, yeah, like I mean, enforcer is a good word for it. They're
yeah,
in, their role is kind of to enforce their own species uh, subjugation.
yeah,
And it's a really interesting take on it. Um, yeah, and we also get to learn a lot more about in this book about Joran Twiner's strange powers.
yeah. I meant to ask you about that. Yeah, they've started to come out a couple times, and
Mm-hmm.
I've never read anything like it. It's more of like he feels, it's like the smell of desert and the feeling of heat on his body. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of usually how it's described, and he can hear a song or something like that. But yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
a unique magic thing. I'm interested to see where it goes. Have you ever read anything like that? Is this kind of a newer thing, or does this ring any bells to you?
I couldn't think of anything that was really like the magic in this book.
Yeah, same.
It's a very unique take on magic. Uh, it's worth reading about for sure. It's worth reading for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, agreed. It's cool. And yeah, it's so
I want to talk about like the end sequence.
you know, I would be okay if you did.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as we warn the viewers here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't need to talk about it in specific terms. I think I can talk about it in more general terms.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
Is it related to the magic stuff?
yeah.
In the first book, he summoned the Kishan
The
dragon.
Kishan. The Kishan.
Kishan.
Yeah.
And
I always call
then
it Kishan. Yeah.
Kishan, I don't know. I'm still the audiobook guy is still firmly lodged in my head,
Yeah.
um, which I hate. It was not. I was so glad to not read the audiobook. It's much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joran's it's cool. It's like a summoning type thing. The song is heard by different creatures apparently,
Mhm.
but Yeah, it's very engaging so far, and I'm very curious about it.
Yeah. Well, the one of the things I really liked about the first book
Yeah.
was the scale of the Kishan and the scale that everything sort of grew to, like the story kind of got to in the climax, right?
Hmm.
Where like at the end of that first one, it's like you have this huge Kishan, like it's like rolling over and the boat's getting like taken with it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, it's just this enormous force of nature. Like the dragons, these sea dragons, these Kishans are just an absolute force of nature.
Oh,
They
dude, I
are
love when
not
they. Hmm.
creatures, really. You know what I
Mm-mm.
mean?
Which is I like that scene where they're, to kind of give it a little extra gravitas. They talk about how many thousands of people had to die to just like bring down a small one to
Mm-hmm.
make bone ships. I mean, they were
Yep.
talking like entire fleets of ships would be lost just trying to nail one
Yep.
of these giant mythic dragon things. And yeah, it's pretty cool. The
Yeah.
scope
Because
was big.
the the benefits of success were like, civilization making, you know. So in the first book, it was like this huge deal. And these Kishans were just like awe-inspiring. And in the second book, it's like ramped up. They're like dragon kaiju things, right? Like the scale becomes almost like unfathomably large, like tsunamis, right? Like the like apocalyptic in scope.
Cool.
Um and it was something that I haven't seen in the fantasy before, really. Not in that way. Not
Okay.
in that way where like 1 second you're doing one thing and then there's a Kishan and suddenly everything you've been doing, everything you were doing, all the fights and all that, it's all just rendered moot and everybody's just trying to live through a natural disaster that is a Kishan, right? And
Hmm.
uh it's a remarkable piece of writing. And I loved every second of this book. I'm a big fan of like nautical like stuff. I'm a big fan of like, and I don't know if you know or if very many people know this about me, but when I was younger I used to sail,
Hmm.
like on tall ships and stuff. Um, and so like I've been on tall ships, like I love sailing, and so I love nautical stuff, and then I love fantasy, and I love dragons, and I love and pirates and pirate stories, ever since I read
Hmm.
Treasure Island when I was a kid. So this book ticks all of these boxes like massively. And I just loved it.
Yeah, man, it's been interesting getting into it. I got into nautical stuff more because of you. I don't know. I played Man of War growing up, which was it was like a nautical Warhammer game, basically
Mm-hmm.
Warhammer universe, but on boats. So I like that aspect, like the fantasy aspect. But I remember sitting down watching Master and Commander back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And that got me the bug. It's like, oh, okay, I think I like this genre. But yeah, I think yeah, for me these books are interesting because I don't usually I read if I do nautical stuff, I think my flavor is sci-fi nautical stuff. Like if there's a spaceship
Mm-hmm.
space, usually I like it.
Yeah.
Um, so it's taken a bit of like a shift over in my brain to get used to it. But yeah, it's really novel, man. There's so many things that stick out about it. I mean, just the use of the Galler bows is really cool. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it adds a real fun element. They could have cannons like everything else, but the author takes the time to imagine
Yeah.
this world where they have these gigantic, basically scorpions that
Like
live on
crossbow
deck.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, just that fire ballista bolts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool.
Yeah. And everything, all the technology, the whole society, everything, right, is structured around the use of dragon bone. Like what could
Yeah.
you make if you had this dragon bone material and nothing else? Like what ways would you creatively come up with to fulfill the role of a cannon or a ballista or whatever? Like, well, you'd probably make some kind of ballista like thing. They call them the gallow bows, right? Gallow bow. Gallow.
Gallabos. I
Yeah.
think it's Gallabos. Yeah. Again, the voice actor, bless his heart. just sounded like Gallerbo's to me. Also, deck chowder is how he said. It's really bugged me. Deck chowder.
Deck chowder. What was
Yeah,
he
it's
trying to
how
say?
deck chowder when referring to the people who work on the ship. There are a lot of interesting choices for the words he used and the voices. Dude, Lucky Me's, man. Like I think I said in the last one, like his voice for Lucky Me's was really like this. Jordan. She's a lady in her 40s, man. She's not like
yeah.
grizzled old man captain. Yeah, so if you're listening, I do not recommend you do the audiobook. It's difficult to get through. If that's your thing, do what you got to do. But I'm enjoying it much more now that I'm reading it. But yeah, so like you're saying, Gus, that is what I'm appreciating with this book. I'm fleshing out the world a little bit more, and you already, so I'm not halfway, and there's already been scenes that just stick out of my head, and they're probably going to be in there for a while. Like there's a slave, like they come across a slaver ship, not, but it's not really a slaver ship, and the way they describe the way that like these hundreds of people are kept below the deck, well, it's a super dark. It reminded me a lot of stuff from Glenn Cook, the way he describes just the horror of the battlefield and the stench and the stink and the filling of the rot and stuff like that. So
yeah, no,
I gotta say,
yeah, I agree. That scene stuck in my head for a while after I read it, for sure.
Yeah, it's a very the something about this author he's really good at, and I don't see a lot too. I could smell the book, like when he describes stuff. You can like even the way he describes the bone ships in the first book, like the rotten Tide Child in the beginning there, like right off the bat, I was like, that's gross. And I'm not used to reading about that kind of gross in books, the way stuff smells. And yeah.
No, he has a talent for that, and it's. I always thought it was interesting, that these bone ships they've got are literally like rotting out from beneath them, and you find out in this book, you find out more about like the rot that sailors can get, or more commonly the
shipwrights,
like the shipwrights can get from working on the vessels, because they, the bones of the ships are literally rotting, and it's like some kind of, I don't want to speculate, some kind of, I don't know, fungusy thing that's just like, it's like almost like leprosy, right? That gets into the shipwrights.
Yeah. And I think, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying it's the stench, right? Like it's the stench of that rot is like the way that the way that RJ Barker describes these things is like, pretty gnarly, pretty gross.
Dude, I think now that we're talking about it, I'll go into book club mode. Book club. Yeah. I think his description of the rotting bones is it's an overall description of the culture and the world that they're in. It's basically a rotting society where they're doing these terrible, awful things to people for no good reason. I mean, just to give you an idea of this book and why it's kind of hard to read sometimes, like if you have a baby born that does not have a digit missing or is whole, they take that baby and they sacrifice it so that it becomes a little light on top of one of their ships. Like this, it's like a fucked up world. People are born with all the just marred from birth, with burn scars and fingers and arms and legs missing and stuff. And the elite, the people at the top, they call them kept. They're the people who breed and the people who live in luxury while everybody else toils. Like it's a hard, heavy world.
I was properly grimdark.
Yeah, it's very like so much so that I think that's why it's a little difficult to get into it, because it's been the world's been a little intense and heavy lately, and the book has been intense heavy on top of that. It's one of those books that I've talked before about. You got to be careful with some books to be in the mood for it and stuff. This one can be a little heavy.
Yeah, it can be heavy.
But I appreciate the way, and when you read about the bone ships, he does that cool author thing where there's small things reflect the bigger things, and you get this feeling of like, ugh, this is awful. This world, there's some bad shit going on. So I really appreciate that. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious to hear about this ending.
Well, there's
what can you say? Yeah.
Well, there's a big reveal. I mean, I'll spoil something. Something I want to spoil.
Okay.
That's revealed at the end of this book.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot more that happens right at the end of the book in general. This isn't the only thing, but one of the big reveals in this book is that all the islands are sleeping dragons.
Get out of here. Whoa. Yeah. Damn it. That's actually pretty big. I don't regret, but holy shit.
Yeah.
So they're living on the dragons.
Not all the islands are dragons. There's a few that aren't.
Okay.
But Joran is accidentally waking them up.
He's here. Oh, that's why he's hearing the song.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay, that's pretty cool.
It's pretty metal.
It is.
Yeah, it's chapter 41.
Okay.
Shit gets real. It was pretty far in. And I can't remember where it was. There was a point where I was like, I wonder if the islands are dragons.
Yeah.
In like, I don't know, towards the end of book 1. And then I was like, no, that'd be too crazy. That'd be too much. And then they totally are. And I was like, oh my God.
I love when that happens. I love when the passing thought tradition
yeah.
thing. Cool. Man. Yeah, the only one I've had, like I was pretty sure Joran was some sort of spellcaster or mage type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that the elite are basically they're subjugating all the other people. I think it's usually some dastardly shit going on. Like they don't want the magic users to rise again or something like that, or they don't want. I'm sure there's something like a class-based thing going on, but I mean, I don't know, maybe not. That's my thing. But the islands, out of the blue for me. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's wild when it happens. Oh. Like, and there are like, there's like basically like there's a whole sequence where like they're on an island when it wakes up. You know what I'm saying?
Whoa,
it's like,
cool.
That's what I'm talking about. Like suddenly, like you're fighting, you're having this whole thing, and then suddenly, like shit gets real, and you don't care that you were fighting these guys. You're just trying to live. Right.
Kaiju.
And, yeah, it's kaiju shit. Like, no, the island is the kaiju, and you're on it.
Yeah. Cool.
There's some cool shit in this book. This book, when I read it, it like totally blew me away. Even more than the first one did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, more than the second one does, later, after this. And I will get into that another time. Is like the peak of the series for me, this book right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth finishing, but definitely read this book. Definitely read the first two. Definitely get through this one. It's fantastic. Cool. I think once you're through these two, you'll be like, oh, I need to finish the whole thing. But but the second one is fantastic. So
yeah. And yeah, for those of you starting out, although it'd be weird if you were listening to this and you had the first one, but if you haven't, do yourself a favor, don't do the audiobook. Just read it like a normal person. It'll save you lots of like heartache and headache later. Because it was bad enough, Gus, that it affected my like desire to read it. Because
no,
I mean just everything, like the way it's lucky bees, the way he'd say it. It's like God,
that's too bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So yeah, don't be like me. Just read the books.
Just read this, yeah.
Because and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm glad you recommended it too. And I was saying it figures because usually I run out of steam like right before the book gets going. Mm-hmm. And I should have known too. And this one, I don't think it's running out of steam so much as just the world's a little crazy right now.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear that.
Yeah, but well, man, I think I'm good. I'm looking forward to finishing it. It's grim. It's a smelly book in a good way. It's metal, it's dark.
Yeah.
I love the character development. I love the lore being expanded and the world being expanded.
Yep.
Um, it's yeah, it's great. It's good stuff. I highly recommended it.
I'm good. You
I'm
good? You
good
good?
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, man.
All righty. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you on the next one. Have a good night.
And stay gold.
All right. Like, not going to say anything else.
Nope.
Nope.
Just got to get it out there.
Yeah.
I was trying to do the cool stay gold,
Stay
Stay gold.
gold.
Yeah, stay
Yeah.
gold. Yeah, and then you commit. Stay gold.
Yeah.
That's all you get.
That's all you're getting.
That's it.